Greetings, peeps. My name is Andrea Hunter, and welcome to Sips Civics, where each episode we pour a drink and break down civics, labor laws, government, history, and current events in a way that's approachable, thoughtful, and judgment-free. Whether you're confused or need a refresher about how government works, labor laws, protocols, and want to stay informed without doom scrolling, or just enjoying learning with a drink in hand, this day's drinks is Swamp Siren Tea-tini. So delicious. Or enjoy learning with a drink in hand, as I just said, and space for you. Today, we will discover and explore in the continuation of local government and federal government as well as state. Let's review again the three branches of the U.S. government. As we said, legislation branch makes the laws, the executive branch carries out those laws, and the judicial branch evaluates those laws. This is a very important midterm election year because you will be electing those in your state and federal Congress that makes all these things happen in your everyday lives. Okay? Federal versus state. State, executive branch, legislature branch, and judicial branch. All of them have that, right? But in the federal level, your executive branch is going to be who? The President of the United States, the leader. In your state branch, who's going to be the executive? That would be your governor. Each one in the states and the federal level have a legislative branch, a judicial branch, and an executive branch. Okay, that's the difference. Into other elected officials and their duties. Mayor. Mayor is elected chief executive of a city or municipality for overseeing government operations, implementing policies, and representing the community. Mayors manage the city's budget, address public concerns, and work with the city council. What is a commissioner? Commissioner is an elected official who, as a part of a board or council, oversees and manages the operations and activities within their jurisdiction. They are responsible for policy development, budget management, and representing the interests of their constituents. They make critical decisions on matters like land use, infrastructure, and public services. They serve as a link between the government and the public, addressing inquiries and providing information. If you are a commissioner in a county, you oversee county management administrations. If you have a commissioner in a city, members of a city government body responsible for legislative matters. And Board of Commissioners oversees the operation activities of an agency or an organization which they are the commissioner of. City council members. Job responsibilities are to represent the constituents, making decisions on legislation and policy, overseeing city government operations. They introduce and vote on new laws, ordinances, and resolutions. Negotiate and approve the city budget, monitor city agencies, review land use and oversee city departments, secures funding for city projects, create policy coordinating city events and promoting civic engagement, represent their city at a local, regional, and state levels. County clerk. Duties include maintaining county records, ensuring the integrity of the electoral process through oversee elections and voter registration, financial administration of various licensing and permit functions, record and filing of deeds, mortgages, resolutions, ordinances, court records, vital statistics, which is birth, death, marriage, etc., and much more. Serves as clerk for the county and commissioner's court, maintaining records for county departments that can include employees' personal files and financial records, develop and monitor the county budget, prepare financial reports and payroll and benefits for county employees, tax collection and preparation of tax rolls, issue permits and collective fees for parades, liquor licenses, marriages licenses, passports, notaries, etc. Most various different licenses that are available in your county. City clerk, okay, manages city records, facilitates public meetings, oversees elections, ensures licenses and permits for businesses, permits buildings and special events, acts of liaison between the public and city government, maintain the city records and documents to ensure transparency and accountability. Financial responsibilities include and maintains financial records, preparing reports, overseeing revenue collections, ensures legislative active ordinances, resolutions are properly recorded, published, and made available to the public. Hear what I say, made available to the public. City clerk is supposed to make sure that these things are public awareness, that you can go and look and be able to see anything that is being done. School board member. Now, this is very important to me. Please listen closely what a school board member does. Setting the district's vision, hiring the superintendent, adopting policies, approving budgets, and advocating for public education. Oversee the school district budget, act on personal recommendations, and approve curriculum. Hear what I said? Approve curriculum. Adopting and overseeing district policies, approving district budget, oversee school personnel, staff hiring and firing, approve curriculum. As I said again, I put that twice for you to emphasize that they approve the curriculum. Maintaining governance standards, evaluating policy, implementing in progress, community activism liaison. This is very personal to me because I constantly hear parents talking about the curriculum, but they don't go to a school board meeting. They don't even know the names of the school board members. When they do not turn on the back of the ballot to vote for these very people who have your children's education and mind in their hands. Sometimes, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this educational forum, is explain to people, look into the mirror to why your system in your government, your everyday lives in your workplace are not up to par. Because we have to look in the mirror to who's responsible. If the school board creates a curriculum and you want to say that your children are not learning in the way you think they should be learning, then why aren't you at these meetings? Why aren't you stressing to these people that I will vote you in, I can vote you out? Please make a curriculum that makes my children be able to be marketable and competitive in the world of retaining employment today. So this is why you need to know. What gets me, we can tell you, pick your fancy football picks right now. We're going through the, March Madness. You're very attentive to that. You can tell me something about your favorite social activity, but you cannot tell me the names of the members in your school board who have your precious thing, precious, most valuable item in your life, your child. Let me get off my soapbox and let's continue. Lobbying. The practice of lobbying is considered so essential to the proper functioning of the U.S. government that it is specifically protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which states, Congress shall make no law abridging the right of the people peacefully to petition the government for a redress of your grievances. You have a right to go to your school board meetings. You have a right to go to your city council meetings. You have a right to go before Congress in your state, in your Senate, and tell them and address them properly in a way to let them know what you want. That is why the House of Representatives, you don't see your House of Representatives in your community, then they're not doing their job. Your House of Representatives from your state or from the federal should be in your area, understanding and listening to the people and what they need and what's their, like I said, redress your grievances, your problems, your issues. It's protected in the First Amendment. History of voting rights in America. Legislative acts throughout history on voting rights in this country. First, you had to be a white male, 21 years old, and own property. We know everybody didn't own property, okay? So from the beginning of this country, when the voting process took place, there was always isolation of a certain group of people, right? So this is what you understand, because if you don't know your history, that's why we are in the process of doing and repeating these things, because it's not knowing history. Okay, the 15th Amendment, freed blacks, poll tax, literacy test, okay? Right? And and that was in 1870. 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed. Women of all races could vote. 1965, the Voting Rights Act stopped the literacy test. No prerequisites to voting. Now, what I want you to do is pay attention to this chart. And this is why I talk about it has to educate people in elected or appointed positions. Racism, yes, but misogyny. Please look at what I'm about to say to you. Black men were allowed to vote in 1870. Even though some of them considered them 2/3 or 3/5 or whatever of a human being, they were not even considered a whole person in the eyes of many, but they let white men allowed for, the powers that be, allowed for black men to vote in 1870. Yet, they did not allow their own DNA. What I mean by that is their own mothers, their own daughters, their own sisters, and their wives to vote into from 1870 to 1920 is 50 years to 50 years later. So please understand, misogyny is alive and well in this country. When you don't even let someone that you're supposed to love, that shares your DNA, vote between a stranger you don't even know. So please keep that in mind. Let's go over different acts. And these acts are very important to allow you to understand how we had the right to do things that we need to do. I have in each slide, you will see it explains how the 15th Amendment is written in the Constitution, because I'd like you to understand, and a lot of people understand, when they go back to the education, and when we talk about things, oh, they no longer teach cursive in schools. How important is cursive? I'll tell you how important it is. The American Constitution is written in what? Cursive. So, if you don't know how to read cursive, how would you learn to read the American Constitution? And if you don't know the laws, then you're not going to be able to understand when the laws are violated, because you wouldn't even know, right? Because you'd not be able to read them. So that's very important when you go back to that school board to make sure they put cursive back in this learning. All right, let's start off with the Wagner Act of 1935, better known as National Labor Relations Act. Labor law statute which governs the right for basic rights of private sector employees to organize labor unions and engage in collective bargaining. Established the National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, okay, which consists of 5 people. These 5 people are appointed by the President of the United States. Taft-Hartley Act, better known as the Labor Management Regulations Act or Right to Work, placed stipulation for striking, constraints on lobbying capacity, made provisions to close shops, brews. Remember, closed shop is where you have an employment and you have to go under the union. Open shops is you have the option, like in public sectors, to join a union or not. Requires disclosure of union finances. Please understand, union members, if you are one here, that the reason why you have a financial secretary or a treasurer or three trustees is because it's required. It was a law, Taft-Hartley Act of 1947, that made that the union finances must be guided and it must be proven, regulated by the Department of Labor and IRS. The Landry-Griffith Act, or what we call Landry, the Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act, regulates labor unions' internal affairs and their officials' relationships with employers. Made members to the Taft-Hartley Act, instituted federal penalties for misuse of union funds. I think it's ironic that they closely regulate unions or other public, different kind of institutions that's 501 or community-based, and yet we can hardly ever balance the budget of the United States government, right? So how someone's going to tell you how to do something and they don't know how to do it itself? Okay, so right here, I always let people see the Schoolhouse Rock. It's a very basic video that you would watch, but it tells you just exactly how a bill is done. And like I said, we're going to do these things in a way that everybody can understand. Someone say, well, Andrea, you're talking down to people. I don't believe that. I believe where a lot of people want to ask a question, but they fear that, being judged because they're supposed to know this. No, you're not supposed to. If you're not exposed to it, you're not supposed to anything. So in this space that we have here, this is a judgment-free zone. If you cannot know something that you have not been exposed to, Super PACs, political action committees, are independent political committees that support a candidate with unlimited, often anonymous donations from companies, unions, or individuals. Citizen United ruling, where they used to be, screened and organized. 2010, the Supreme Court, Citizens United versus Federal Election Committee. Now they can spend how much money. It's no longer controlled. Okay. A labor union. I just want to give you a definition of what a labor union is. A labor union, political action committee, right? A proper term for political committee organized for the purpose of raising and spending money to elect or defeat candidates. Many unions have CAC, what we could call, CAC money, to ensure their best interest in the politic process. This is why when people say, why do unions get involved in politics? Because there's laws, like I said, different laws where it does mandate that hurts labor. And we all understand when unions fight for different working laws, everybody benefits because the 99% are governed by everyday work laws, right? And if you don't belong to a union, you still have law, rights, EEOC. That I brought, in our first segment. You still have an avenue to complain or put in a grievance against being unfairly treated, okay? So you want everybody to know you have that right? What does civic duty mean to you? Civic duty is your duty, like I said, to address and to participate in the electoral process. Because even if you don't care about politics, they care about you. They govern you. They regulate what you cannot do and can do. They regulate what you can put for your tax write-off. They regulate how much you pay for your fire, police, water. So this is why it's very critical that you understand the process of things that do what? Take care of your pocketbook or destroy your pocketbook, either way you want to put it. So this is why you must know. So let's talk about different positions and what they do and functions. What is a precinct delegate? A precinct delegate is an elected representative to a local political party from their precinct. There are more than 5,000 precincts in Michigan. Every precinct has at least one delegate spot, and some have more. The number of delegates is determined by the local leadership of each political party and is based on the number of votes received by their party in that precinct in the previous election. Responsibilities of a precinct delegate. Aside from helping to elect political candidates that actually support your agenda, precinct delegates should plan to attend and actively participate in their county conventions, usually for during a 2-year term. These are very general guidelines, however. Each party has their own specifications. Explain briefly what a petition is, too. A formal written request, typically one signed by many people, appealing to an authority with respect to a particular cause, okay? But I want you guys to be very, very careful of the petitions you sign. Like what's coming to this one big beautiful bill, which is a whole nother segment I'm talking about that's already passed, and there's nothing beautiful about it for the average working person. And it's going to be implemented in November of 2026. And when they call it right to work, people say, I want to right to work. No, but it's actually the right to work for less. They have these catchy slogans that makes you think it's all good. But when you read it in its entirety, many times they use big words that only lawyers can understand or decipher. But here, in this arena, we will break them down for, I call layman, anybody to understand. So just don't sign a petition because it sounds good. I recommend you don't sign it. Investigate, ask them for their card or something. Let you look at it. Because they said someone told me, oh, well, the law says they have to put on that petition what it say. Yes, that's the law states, but that doesn't mean it necessarily does it. Okay? When they were trying to pass, different ordinances and different things to save act. It's like it's going to save you. They made Americans think we're going to make sure that only American citizens can vote. It didn't tell you all the stipulations about the birth certificate, as I explained in our earlier segment, that a lot of people are not going to have a birth certificate endorsed by a hospital because they were not born in a hospital, right? They're born to midwives. And a lot of younger couples are employing midwives to deliver their babies. So you're not born in a hospital. Or you're married and your ID does not match your birth certificate because your maiden name is on your birth certificate, but your married name is on ID, you'll be one of those people who cannot vote, get this voter ID. And plus, to get a voter ID card, please understand that is against the 1965 Voters' Rights Act, because you're not supposed to have to pay to vote. You're not supposed to. It's illegal. Okay? GOTV, that is a term we use to get out the vote. Our terms used to describe two categories of political activity, both aimed at increasing the number of votes cast in one or more elections. Please understand, I want this to be really people. They can cast your right to vote if you do not vote. All states have different laws. In the state of Michigan, if you do not vote in 2 consecutive elections, you go there, they can cast you out. Now, what's okay about Michigan, thank you, we passed a law that you can same day voting here. But please believe, you might get there, you don't have your parents saying they have already purged you. Because people say, well, I voted in all my elections. No, they say every election you are eligible for. So look at your state. So you voted in the presidential election, but right after the president's election, you had a city election, which you did not vote. Then you had a special election. You did not vote. So that 4th election, guess what? You're purged from the books because it's 2 consecutive elections you didn't vote in. So be aware of that. Just make sure you check your voter registration status. Now, every state is different, okay? So you have to make sure, and you should be able to go to your Secretary of State office and it'll give you a list of what requirements you need for voting in that state. Voter registration. Voter registration is a requirement in some democracies for citizens and residents to check in with some central registries specifically for the purpose of being allowed to vote in elections. And an effort to get people to register is known as voter registration drive. The first time you vote, it must be in person in Michigan. You cannot use absentee ballot in Michigan. So let me explain. If you have a child that just turned 18 and the election is coming up in November, you'll want them to vote in the primary. So that way they don't have to fly, spend all kind of money home to come over to vote. Because they voted in that primary, which is usually in August, okay, the primaries are in August, let them vote in that primary before they go off to college if they're going off the state. Or going farther away from where they live. Like if their residency is in Detroit, but they're going to the University of Michigan, okay, they're out there in Ann Arbor, or Central Michigan, New State, and they live in another city, please ensure that they vote in that primary before they leave, so that way they can get an absentee ballot and don't have to drive all the way and travel home to vote. In the state of Michigan, we passed legislation that allows 16 and 17-year-olds to register to vote. Now, people say, well, they can't vote till they're 18. Facts. However, you would like that 16 and 17-year-old to register to vote so they can get all the information, so they can get used to listen to information, getting ballot initiative. They can get things so they can already be registered to vote. Unfortunately, we're not like other countries when you automatically vote when you're 18, because I don't think you should have to register if you're an American citizen. But that's things we fight in bills, right? That we do what? Lobby to ensure to our elected officials that we go call our House of Representatives to make them create a bill that this will happen. So those are things I would like to see in the future, but I digress. Again, voter registration drive. A voter registration drive is an effort often undertaken by a political campaign, political party, or outside nonpartisan group that seeks to register to vote those who are eligible but not registered. When a lot of people say my vote doesn't matter, I say this. If you truly believe your vote does not matter, why would they spend millions, when I say they, the powers that be, spend millions and millions of dollars coming up with these bills or in lobbying for these bills for you not to have the right to vote? No one does that for something that's not important. That does not matter. Why would they care? Why are they making different laws and make restrictions for you to be able to vote? Wake up, people. Wake up. When you're rich and powerful, your job is to make more money in your mind. So why waste money on something that's not important? It's important. They want to not for you to vote. When people don't go to their union meetings, don't go to their school board meetings, don't go to their city council meetings, they're not mad. They don't want you there. Because if you're there and you make a ruckus, but if you're not there, they get to pass and do what they want. Again, look into the mirror to the person responsible for the America you want. It's you. When you do not participate, all you do is do what they want you to do, because it's by the members present, right? All votes by the members are present. If you're not present and make sure that that doesn't happen, they are insured. So please stop saying they doing this, they doing this. We're letting them do this and that because we have a right to say something different. Always tell people to look at your voter registration application. Look at your absentee ballot. Pay attention, read it, and study it before you pick it out. Okay? Look at your registration qualifications that's in your state. All right? And this is something in the state of Michigan, because a lot of states do not allow felons to vote. Okay? In the state of Michigan, you can vote if you have a felon. You can vote if you're waiting arraignment. You just cannot vote if you are in prison. Not if you're in jail or waiting arraignment, because you ain't been convicted yet, right? So you can still vote. And here's why. We allow returning citizens to vote in Michigan because that's the thing. It's a correction facility, right? That's what it is. So now hopefully you have learned and corrected your behavior. So you have a right, because when you come out, you're going to be paying taxes. You're going to be paying taxes like everybody else. So you have a right to vote in the state of Michigan. So, but if you're not in the state of Michigan, please look at your registration qualifications, which will be on your Secretary of State, okay? Please look at the identification and picture identifications that are required in your state, okay? Because everybody's state, allows something different. So just make sure that you look at the picture identifications. Please understand the state that if you don't have it, you're supposed to be what? Provisionally ballot. So you can still be able to vote, okay? There are different voter, like I said, suppression tactics, and a lot of them come up for different reasons. And like I said, why would they do that if they don't, if voting is not important? Right after they gutted some of the Voter Rights Act, okay, recently, laws curbing voter registration drives occurred in Florida, Illinois, Texas, and Virginia. Rules requiring voters to provide documentary proof of citizenship when registering was in Alabama, Kansas, Tennessee, and previously in Arizona. Although these things came up, they still fought up against it, and many of these states won, okay? So just want you to understand that is the primary reason in that. Now, even if you're not in a union or you can join a constituency group, A. Philip Randolph Institute is one that, just as long as you're a citizen, go by their bylaws. What's important about constituency groups and other groups like Jobs for Justice, Sierra Club, Michigan United, you see on the screen the list of constituency groups. This is our nonpartisan, which means, most of them, some of them do have a partisan aggregate, which would be C4, and most of them are C3s. But you want to be here because you want to be a part of legislation. For those who say, I'm not a Democrat, Republican, I'm not a Green Party, Libertarian, I get that. But you still need to be political active where you can just don't, support a party, but support pieces of legislation that helps you with your pocketbook, fair housing, being able to help, advocate for better health care. So you can support a bill without supporting a political party if you do not want to get involved. And I understand that. Okay, it's different applications like photo spotter, things to see, because these people can look up when you voted, when the last time you voted. So you need to know, if they can look up your name and find out, then you need to know your own stats. So you look up these things and ensure that your voters say, if you have enough time to sit down and get your picks for your fantasy football, you have enough time to make sure you study what lottery was last week and play your lottery. If you have enough time for anything in your entertainment, please take time to be involved in politics and vote, right, for the very things in this legislation that gives you the money, all right, that has things to do with your labor, things to do with your job, things how to affect your taxes, how amount of stuff you pay, to be able to have these entertainments. Because without income, okay, and you can't take care of your basic needs, which is food, housing, okay, there's no way you'll be able to take care and have fun with the activities that you enjoy. All right, as I sip the swamp Siren Tea-tini, Oh, this is delicious. Again, in the comments, the recipe for this will be in there. And like I said, we have to sip and be able to drink. And because some of this stuff is just overwhelming. Some of this information, you will find yourself being angry because you didn't know. And this is how we calm ourselves, right? Well, until the next episode, I want you to enjoy life, and I want you to be, as they say, live long and prosper for our Trekkies. Have a great one. Bye.